A terrified alien girl hid in my cabin. She thought humans were monsters. The snowstorm hit the mountain harder than Rowan expected. Wind pushed against him as he climbed the final path toward his cabin. His boots sank deep with every step. His coat was heavy with frozen flakes, and the bag of supplies on his back felt twice as heavy after 3 long days away in town. Rowan only wanted warmth, a fire, silence, sleep. But when he reached his cabin, he stopped moving. The front door was open, not wide, not broken, just slightly open, moving back and forth with the wind, making a soft creaking sound. Rowan frowned. He remembered locking it. He always locked it before leaving. He lived alone in these mountains, and he was careful. He stepped inside slowly. Cold air rushed in behind him. His breath turned white. But something was wrong. The fireplace still held warmth. Someone had used it recently. A few ashes glowed faintly in the pit. A pot of melted snow water sat near the edge. Rowan placed his bag on the floor quietly. He scanned the room. Nothing looked stolen. Nothing was broken. But on the old wooden table lay a piece of bread, half-eaten. He hadn't left that there. He crouched and looked closer at the floor. The dust and snow showed footprints. Small ones. Bare. The toes were long and thin, almost delicate. The shape wasn't human. A chill, colder than the storm, moved through him. Someone, or something, was inside his cabin. Rowan moved carefully toward the hallway. He checked the bathroom, empty. He checked the small closet, empty too. Only one door was left. His bedroom. He pushed it open slowly. The bed was untouched, blankets neatly folded. The window was shut. Everything looked normal. But the silence felt wrong. He stood still and listened. Then he heard it. A soft, shaky breath. Almost like someone trying not to cry. The sound came from below the bed. Rowan lowered himself to the floor and lifted the blanket edge. At first, he saw only darkness. Then 2 pale, glowing silver eyes stared back at him, wide with fear. A small shape curled tightly under the frame. A thin girl, alien, maybe 20 years old. Her skin was pale, with faint shimmering patterns. Her long white gold hair was tangled. She wore torn gray cloth that barely covered her thin frame. She trembled the moment she saw him. She didn't blink, didn't move. She was frozen in fear, like she expected pain. Rowan slowly lowered the blanket. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said softly. She didn't answer. Not a sound. He stood and backed away. I'll make tea," he whispered. He walked back to the living room, lit the fire, and placed a kettle on it. He sat on the floor far from the hallway, where she could see him clearly. He didn't move quickly. He didn't speak again. He just waited. 10 minutes passed. Then he heard a quiet step. Another. He looked up. She stood at the edge of the hallway, thin, shaking, eyes locked on him. She looked like she was ready to run if he even breathed wrong. Rowan reached out slowly and placed a warm cup of tea on the floor between them. Then he leaned back again. She didn't come closer. He didn't force her. They stayed like that in silence, only the fire cracking between them. After almost 20 minutes, she finally stepped forward. Silent, careful. She picked up the cup with trembling hands and retreated a few steps. She sniffed the tea first, then took a tiny sip. Rowan didn't speak. He just watched. She drank slowly, as if warmth felt strange to her, as if she hadn't tasted anything kind in a long time. That night, Rowan set up a small guest bed in the corner of the cabin. He placed clean blankets on it and left a loaf of bread on the table. Later, when he lay in his own bed, he didn't hear her move. But when he opened his eyes an hour later, she was no longer under the bed. She was curled up on the guest mattress, sleeping softly under the warm blanket. Snow fell outside. The wind howled softly. And for the first time in months, Rowan didn't feel lonely. Morning came slowly to the frozen mountain. Pale light pushed through the window as Rowan opened his eyes. For a moment, he wondered if last night had been a dream. But the guest bed in the corner was empty. The blanket he had placed there was gone. Rowan sat up quickly. The fire had burned low. The teacup from last night sat on the table, empty. The loaf of bread was half missing. A few crumbs marked a small trail across the wooden floor. But the girl was nowhere in sight. He checked the living room. Nothing. He checked the bathroom. Still nothing. He checked the closet. Empty. Then he crouched. And there she was again, curled tight under the bed, like a frightened animal returning to the only place it knew. But Rowan saw the clues she left behind. She had come out. She had eaten. She had slept in the warm bed. And then she hid again. Rowan sat on the floor beside the bed. Not close, just near enough for his voice to reach her without sounding sharp. "You came out last night," he said kindly. "That's good. You're safe here." Silence. Her breathing was shaky, like she was afraid even to breathe too loud. "My name is Rowan," he added. For a long time, nothing happened. Then a whisper, barely a sound. "Naira." Rowan blinked. Her voice was soft, as if unused for years. "Naira," he repeated gently. "That's a beautiful name." He didn't press her for more. He didn't ask questions. He simply stood and walked away, giving her space. Later that morning, he cooked a small meal, soft-boiled potatoes and warm broth. He placed the bowl near the fire, then sat at the table and pretended to read an old magazine. He didn't look at her, didn't rush her. 10 minutes later, she crawled out. She moved like a shadow, quiet, careful, always watching him from the corner of her eyes. She picked up the bowl with both hands, almost fearful she might spill it and get punished. She sat near the fire, hugging the warmth, eating silently. Rowan didn't turn his head. He waited until she finished and went back under the bed. It became a pattern. The next day, she came out sooner. The day after, she didn't hide the whole time. She sat near the fire for almost an hour, legs tucked under her, eyes lowered. She flinched at every sudden sound, every crack of firewood, every gust of wind, every time Rowan stood too fast. But she no longer ran. On the fourth day, Rowan decided to try something small. He placed a little wooden comb on the table. Nothing fancy, just smooth and simple. He didn't explain. He just left it there. By evening, it was gone. And the next time Naira stepped out, her hair, still messy, was visibly brushed. Not neat, not perfect, but different. Like someone trying. Rowan smiled quietly. But he noticed something else too. She wasn't just afraid of him. She was afraid of the world. Every time the wind howled outside, she froze. Every time snow slid off the roof, she shook. Every time Rowan accidentally dropped a spoon or closed a cabinet too hard, she gasped like she expected to be hit. One evening, as Rowan added wood to the fire, he moved a step closer to her than usual. Naira jumped back with a terrified sound, nearly knocking over the bowl beside her. Rowan raised his hands instantly. "Sorry," he said quickly. "I didn't mean to scare you." Naira looked down, biting her lip, hands trembling. He knelt slowly, not close to her, and placed the log gently by the fire. "I won't come near unless you want me to," he said softly. Her eyes lifted for only a second, but she nodded. That night, he left a soft wool scarf folded neatly near her spot at the fire. He didn't say a word about it. He simply walked to his bed, turned off the lamp, and tried to sleep. He didn't hear her move. But when he woke in the early dawn, Naira was wrapped in the scarf, sitting near the fire like a small, quiet shadow. This time, when Rowan entered the room, she didn't run. She didn't hide. She just lowered her head slightly, as if greeting him in the only way she knew. And Rowan felt something shift inside him. For the first time, he realized she wasn't just surviving. She was trying to trust. The storm eased the next morning, leaving a calm, silver glow over the mountains. Rowan woke early, expecting to find Naira under the bed again. But when he looked toward the fire, he froze. She wasn't hiding. She sat on the rug, knees pulled to her chest, wrapped in the scarf he had given her. Her eyes were open, staring at the small flames. She looked lost, like someone trying to understand a world she didn't belong to. Rowan didn't speak. He didn't want to scare her. He quietly poured hot water into 2 cups. As he set one near the fire, Naira's eyes flicked toward him. Not fearfully this time, just cautious, like she was studying him the way a frightened creature studies a safe place, trying to decide if it's real. Rowan sat at the table and opened an old book. The pages were yellow and worn, but he wasn't reading. He noticed Naira watching him from the corner of her eyes, curious, confused. Her head tilted slightly with every page he turned. After a few minutes, Rowan closed the book halfway and slid it slightly toward her. "It's a story," he said gently. "If you want to see." Naira didn't move. She stayed frozen for nearly a full minute. Then, slowly, carefully, she crawled a little closer, just enough to reach the edge of the book. She touched the page with the tips of her fingers, as if it might burn her. Rowan smiled. You know these letters?" he asked softly. Naira hesitated, then gave a tiny nod. So Rowan opened the first page and began reading aloud. His voice was calm and warm, filling the cabin with a sense of peace that felt almost unreal after days of tension. It was a simple story about a young bird trying to fly again after hurting its wings. Naira's eyes stayed locked on the page. She didn't blink. She didn't look away. When Rowan finished the last line, he tried to gently close the book, but her hand stayed on the corner of the page. She wasn't ready for it to end. "You can keep it," he said softly. Her fingers tightened around the book just a little, barely noticeable, but full of meaning. Later, while Rowan washed dishes, he heard something soft behind him. A sound so gentle, he almost thought it was the wind. But it wasn't. Naira was humming. Her voice was light, almost too faint to hear, but it carried a strange, haunting melody. Not human, not something Rowan recognized. It was full of sadness, pain, and something fragile beneath it, something like hope. Rowan turned slowly, not wanting to break the moment. "That's beautiful," he said. Naira stopped instantly, eyes wide, as if she had done something wrong. "Can I hear it again sometime?" His tone was warm, no pressure. Naira lowered her gaze, then gave a quick, tiny nod. That alone felt like a miracle. Later that evening, when Rowan sat at the table drinking tea, he noticed something placed beside his cup. A small object. Smooth. Shiny. Blue like a frozen river stone. Naira stood nearby, shifting nervously. "For you," she whispered. "A gift. Her first." Rowan picked it up slowly and smiled. "Thank you, Naira. It's beautiful." She looked relieved, like she had passed a test she didn't understand. Over the next few days, small changes happened, quiet but powerful. Naira stopped retreating under the bed. She claimed a little corner near the fire as her space. She ate without hiding. She even sat a few feet from Rowan instead of across the room. She still flinched at sudden sounds. She still froze when Rowan moved too fast. But the fear wasn't complete anymore. Sometimes, when Rowan stood up, she didn't jump. She only watched him carefully. Sometimes, she copied his movements, folding blankets when he folded his, stirring soup when he cooked, yawning when he yawned. It was like she was trying to relearn what it meant to live like a person instead of a prisoner. One afternoon, Rowan stepped outside to gather firewood. When he returned, Naira was standing near the window, staring at the snowy forest with a strange, troubled expression. "Are you looking for someone?" Rowan asked gently. Naira's fingers tightened around the curtain. "No," she whispered, but her trembling hand said otherwise. Rowan didn't push. He simply lit the fire again, letting the warmth fill the cabin. For now, she was safe. For now, she was healing. He didn't know what haunted her past, but he felt something growing between them, slow, fragile, but real. Something like trust. Days passed quietly, but something heavy still lived behind Naira's eyes. Rowan could feel it even when she tried to hide it. She spoke a little more now, short words, soft replies, but never about her past. Never about where she came from. Never about what she feared so deeply. Rowan didn't push her. He wanted her to feel safe first. One calm evening, the wind outside softened to a gentle whistle. Snow fell lightly, drifting in slow spirals past the window. Rowan was sewing a rip in his jacket, sitting near the fire. Naira sat just a few feet away, her knees tucked under the blanket he had given her. She stared into the flames like she always did, almost hypnotized by their warmth. The scarf around her shoulders slipped a little as she reached to stir the soup pot. And Rowan saw it. A long scar, pale and jagged, tracing down her arm. Another near her elbow, darker and deeper. Some marks were thin and sharp, like cuts. Others were wider, burned scars, circular wounds that looked painfully familiar to anyone who had seen cruelty before. Rowan's hands stopped moving. Naira noticed his eyes. Instantly, she grabbed the scarf and pulled it up, stepping back as if he had struck her. Her breath grew fast. Her whole body trembled as she retreated toward the cabin corner. "I'm sorry," she whispered in a shaking voice. Rowan placed his sewing needle down slowly. "You didn't do anything wrong." Naira shook her head. Her eyes filled with fear, not sadness. Fear of him. Fear he might yell. Fear he might punish her. Fear of something old and deep inside her. "I'm not good," she said quietly. "I'm damaged." Rowan stood, but he kept distance. He knew getting too close would make her panic. He walked to the table, poured warm tea, and set the cup gently near her corner of the fire. "If you want to talk," he said softly, "I'll listen. If you want silence, that's okay too." For a long time, she didn't move. Finally, She took one trembling step forward, then another. She sat slowly, picked up the cup, and held it close to her face as if it gave her courage. "They hurt me," she whispered. "Many times." Rowan didn't interrupt. Naira swallowed hard, tears building slowly. "I was bought, sold, traded." Her voice shook. "When I cried, they blamed me. When I didn't work fast enough, they hit me. When I failed, they sent me back. Again and again." Every word stabbed Rowan's heart. "They called me useless, broken, worthless." She hugged her scarf tightly. "I tried to escape," she continued. "4 times. They caught me 4 times." Her eyes dropped to the floor. "I thought this time the cold would kill me." Rowan lowered himself to the ground. Not close, just near enough to show he was listening. "You survived," he said quietly. "That means something." Naira looked up at him with glassy eyes. "I thought you would shout," she whispered. "Or hit me. Or throw me outside." "I would never," Rowan said. "Not now, not ever." She watched him carefully, searching his face, almost expecting a trick. When she didn't find one, her shoulders relaxed, just slightly. Naira hesitated, then slowly pulled back the scarf again. Not to hide the scars, to show them. The faint glow from the fire revealed dozens of marks across her arms, her shoulders, even the edge of her ribs. Pain written in lines. Stories carved into her skin. Rowan didn't look away. He didn't flinch. He didn't pity her. He only felt sorrow and respect for the strength she must have carried to still be alive. "You lived through all this," he said softly. "That makes you strong, Naira. Not broken." Her lips parted as if she wanted to speak, but instead tears spilled down her cheeks. Heavy, silent tears that shook her body. She covered her face with her hands and sobbed. Messy, uncontrollable cries she had probably held inside for years. Rowan didn't touch her. He didn't want to make her fear return. But he sat close enough for her to know she wasn't alone. When her crying softened, she whispered through shaky breaths, "Why are you kind to me?" "No one ever was." Rowan answered gently, "Because someone should have been a long time ago." Naira wiped her tears with the corner of her scarf. Her breathing slowed. For the first time, she didn't look terrified. That night, she didn't crawl under the bed, and she didn't stay far away. She curled up near the fire, just a small distance from Rowan. Not touching him, but close enough to feel safe. Close enough to rest. Close enough to heal. The cabin was quiet that night, quieter than it had been in days. The fire hummed softly, shadows danced on the wooden walls, and Naira slept curled near the hearth, wrapped in the scarf Rowan gave her. Her breathing was calm, steady. The fear that usually clung to her seemed to loosen a little. Rowan watched her with a tired but gentle smile. She looked peaceful, almost normal, as if she finally believed she was safe. He closed his eyes for a moment. Then, the lights flickered. Once. Twice. The fire didn't move. The wind was calm. This flicker came from somewhere else. Rowan's eyes snapped open. He looked toward the frosted window. A strange glow shimmered outside, soft at first, then stronger. It shifted colors, blue, violet, green. Not lightning. Not lanterns. Not anything from Earth. Rowan stood slowly, heart thudding. Before he could step closer, Naira woke. One moment she was asleep. The next, she was sitting upright. Her eyes widened, glowing brighter than the strange light outside. Every muscle in her body tightened. Her hands shook violently. "No," she whispered. "Not now." Rowan crouched beside her. "What is it?" She didn't answer. She rushed to the wall and pressed her ear against it, listening to the distant hum growing louder. Her face drained of color. "They found me," she said. Her voice broke. "They found me, Rowan." Fear filled her words like poison. Rowan grabbed his coat. "What do you mean?" "Who?" She spun toward him. "Tita, hide me. Please." She pointed at the kitchen. "The floor. Lift it." Rowan didn't hesitate. He ran to the loose board he kept over an old storage crawl space. He pulled it up, revealing a cold, narrow hollow beneath the floor. Naira climbed down quickly, curling into the shadows like she had done 100 times before. Rowan covered her with 2 old blankets, then lowered the board back into place, leaving only a thin crack for air. The humming outside grew louder, shaking the window frames. Then, knock. Sharp. Heavy. Inhuman. Rowan took a deep breath and opened the door just enough to look outside. 2 tall figures stood in the snow. They wore black armored suits designed for storms far worse than this one. Their helmets were made of glass, so dark Rowan couldn't see their faces. Strange symbols glowed on their chest plates, symbols that pulsed with the same colors as the lights he'd seen. One held a glowing hologram in the air. A picture. Naira. Dirty. Chained. Terrified. "Have you seen this runaway?" the taller one asked. Its voice was metallic, distorted. Rowan forced his heartbeat to slow. "No. No one travels up this mountain. She escaped her owners," the soldier said. "She is property. She is dangerous." Rowan clenched his jaw. "She's not here." The soldiers stepped forward. Rowan blocked the doorway. "You can check if you want." They pushed past him. Their heavy boots echoed through the cabin. They searched the closet, the bedroom, behind furniture, even under Rowan's bed. Rowan stood completely still, praying they wouldn't notice the floorboard. One soldier scanned the cabin with a handheld device. It beeped once, then stopped. "Nothing," he said. The taller one turned back to Rowan. "If you see her, report immediately." Rowan nodded. "Of course." They left without another word, walking back into the snowstorm. A massive dark ship hovered above the trees, claw-shaped, silent except for the faint hum of its engines. It lifted slowly into the clouds, vanishing into the night. Rowan shut the door fast. He rushed to the kitchen, moved the board aside. "Naira," he whispered. A thin hand reached up. Then another. Naira lifted herself out, shaking uncontrollably. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she stared at Rowan. "You lied for me," she whispered. "Why would you do that?" Rowan knelt in front of her. "Because you're not theirs," he said. "You never were." Naira covered her mouth, overwhelmed. Her entire body trembled, not just from fear, but from something deeper, something she had never felt before. Safety. She fell forward, not into his arms, but close enough that Rowan gently steadied her shoulders. She cried quietly, silently, her tears soaking the edge of his sleeve. I thought they would take me again," she said through broken breaths. "I can't go back." "You won't," Rowan said. He helped her sit near the fire again, covering her with blankets. Naira looked up at him with trembling eyes. "I've never been safe before," she whispered. "Not even for one day." Rowan sat beside her, not touching, but close enough to protect. "You're safe tonight," he said. "And you're not alone anymore." Naira slowly leaned against the wall, staring into the flames as if they held a future she never believed she would have. A future where she wasn't hunted. A future where she wasn't property. A future where she finally belonged somewhere. Rowan didn't sleep that night. He kept watch by the window, rifle near his side. Because now he knew the truth. Whoever was searching for Naira would come back. And this time, they would not be fooled. The morning after the soldiers came, the mountain felt too quiet, like the air itself was waiting. Rowan barely slept. He sat by the window with his rifle beside him, eyes scanning the gray sky for any strange glow. Naira didn't sleep either. She sat near the fire, wrapped in 2 blankets, hugging her knees. Her breathing was shallow, her eyes distant. It was the look of someone preparing for something terrible. Rowan offered her tea. "You should rest," he said softly. Naira shook her head. "They won't stop," she whispered. "They never stop." Her voice sounded older, like she carried more years of pain than her young body showed. Rowan sat across from her. "Naira, who exactly are they? Why do they call you property?" Naira looked into the fire for a long time before answering. "I didn't tell you everything," she said. "Not because I wanted to lie. I just didn't want you to send me away." Rowan leaned forward. "I wouldn't." Her eyes lifted slowly, searching his face again, making sure. Then she took a small breath. "My full name is Nerithiel Veridis. I was not born a slave." Rowan frowned softly. "That sounds like a royal name." Naira nodded once. "I belong to the House Veridis," she said. "My family ruled the Sapphire Moons for generations. We protected our people, our culture, our history." Her voice broke slightly. "But when the Empire invaded, they destroyed everything." Rowan didn't speak. He let her continue. "They killed my guards, burned my home. My parents fell during the siege. I was 13 when they dragged me out from beneath the ruins." She closed her eyes. "They put chains on me before the smoke even cleared." Rowan felt something twist painfully inside him. "They hid my name, cut my hair, broke my identity until I forgot who I was." Her fingers gripped the blanket. "I escaped 4 times. Each time, they tracked me down, beat me, and sold me again. The last owner, he planned to sell me off planet. I jumped from his freighter before it left orbit. That's how I ended up here. I didn't think I'd survive the fall. Or the cold. She looked at Rowan again, tears threatening to fall. When you found me, I thought you would be like the rest. Her voice trembled. I thought you would hurt me. Rowan shook his head. You're not a thing. And you're not alone. Naira pulled something from her scarf, a small, glowing shard. Purple, crystalline, warm like living light. This is the Veritas birthstone, she said. Every royal carries one. It proves who I am. Only my blood can wake it. The crystal pulsed softly as she held it. Rowan stared. Why give this to me? Naira placed it in his hand. Because if they kill me, I want someone left in the galaxy who knows my real name. Rowan's chest tightened. You're not going to die. But Naira's eyes were troubled. They planted a tracking echo inside the stone, she whispered. It is old technology. Weak. But if they come close, it will wake and call them. Rowan swallowed hard. So the soldiers last night. They weren't here for me, Naira said. They were scouting, checking signals. The cabin went silent. Outside, the sky turned darker, too dark for morning. Rowan walked to the window. A shadow moved through the clouds. Not a cloud, not a storm. A ship. Large. Silent. Black as the night sky. Naira stood without needing to look. It's them, she whispered. The erasers. Rowan grabbed his rifle. What do they want? Naira's face was pale with terror. To erase me from existence, she whispered. Not just to capture me. To remove the last trace of the Veritas line. The ship descended slowly through the snowstorm, its engines rumbling like distant thunder. 3 figures stepped out, taller than the scouts from before. Their armor glowed with bright blue veins of light. Their helmets were sharper, their weapons far more lethal. Rowan opened the door, rifle ready. Naira grabbed his arm. No, they will kill you. Rowan shook his head. I won't let them take you. Naira stared at him, shocked, torn, terrified. No one had ever stood for her before. She took a breath she didn't know she could take. I won't hide this time, she said. They stepped outside together. Snow swept around them, swirling in nervous circles. The warship's lights cut through the gray haze. The soldiers marched forward, boots sinking into fresh snow. The leader spoke through a metallic voice filter. Nerathiel Veritas. You are scheduled for elimination. Naira raised her chin, voice steady despite her fear. I am the last daughter of the House Veritas. I will not kneel. Rowan lifted his rifle. And she's not alone. For a moment, no one moved. Then everything exploded into motion. One soldier fired. Rowan rolled aside, snow bursting around him. Naira moved faster than Rowan had ever seen, jumping behind a tree, throwing a burst of shimmering energy from her hand. The blast knocked one soldier back. Another charged toward Rowan. Rowan fired, hitting the soldier's scanning device, sending sparks flying. Naira leapt onto the last soldier, twisting his weapon from his hand with surprising strength. Her fear turned into fire, a strength she had hidden for years. The leader aimed at Naira. Rowan fired first. The shot cracked through the forest and sent the leader crashing to the ground. A second later, boom. The warship's damaged engine ignited, exploding in a burst of blue fire that lit the entire mountain. Naira stumbled back, staring at the flames, shaking but alive. Rowan rushed to her side. You okay? Naira nodded slowly, tears in her eyes. I'm free, she whispered. For the first time, I'm free. Rowan breathed out in relief, but also in fear. Because they both knew. If this much trouble had come for her already, more would follow. The explosion lit the entire mountain blue. Smoke drifted through the trees, curling upward into the cold morning air. The warship burned silently in the clearing, its wreckage crackling like dying lightning. Snowflakes fell on the glowing metal and hissed into steam. Rowan lowered his rifle slowly. His arms were shaking from the adrenaline, but his eyes stayed locked on Naira. She stood in the snow, chest rising and falling fast, her white gold hair whipping gently in the wind. A blue glow shimmered under her skin, the last echo of whatever strength she had released in the fight. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Naira let out a shaky breath and collapsed to her knees. Rowan dropped his rifle and ran to her. Naira, are you hurt? She shook her head, but she couldn't stand. I used too much, she whispered. My energy, it returned slowly. Rowan helped her sit against a fallen tree. Steam curled around them as snow touched the wrecked ship. The mountain felt alive, watching, listening, waiting. Naira looked at the burning metal. It's over, she whispered, voice soft but full of disbelief. For the first time in my life, no one is coming after me. Rowan knelt beside her. You were brave. She gave him a small, tired smile. No, I was desperate. That's bravery too, Rowan said. Naira closed her eyes for a moment, letting the warmth of the fire and Rowan's presence steady her trembling hands. After a long silence, she whispered, Rowan, do you think they will send more? Rowan looked at the sky, gray, quiet, calm. They sent soldiers, trackers, and a warship. They found nothing but wreckage. And your signal is gone now. There's nothing left to trace. Naira held the birthstone tightly in her hand. When the ship exploded, the echo inside the crystal faded. She looked up at him. Rowan, I'm not hunted anymore. It was the first time her voice carried even a hint of hope. A small breeze carried the scent of smoke through the clearing. Rowan helped her stand, and together they walked back to the cabin. It felt different now, not a place of hiding, but a place of escape, survival, and something new forming between them. Inside, Rowan wrapped Naira in a blanket. She sat close to the fire, letting her body warm slowly as her trembling eased. He poured hot tea and placed it in her hands. Naira stared at the steam rising from the cup. You saved me, she said quietly. No one has ever saved me. You deserve a life, Rowan replied. A real one. Naira looked up at him with glowing silver eyes. A life, for myself. Not for someone else. Not as property. Not as prey. Exactly, Rowan said. She breathed deeply, as if taking in the idea for the very first time. A life. A future. A home. After a long silence, she spoke again. I have a question. Rowan leaned forward. Go ahead. Now that I am free. She hesitated, fingers tightening around the cup. Do you want me to leave? Rowan blinked, surprised. Naira, why would I want that? Naira's voice was small. Because I bring danger. Because I am strange. Because I am not human. Rowan laughed softly. Naira, you think that matters to me? She looked confused. It doesn't. Not even a little. She stared at him for a long time, studying his face the same way she studied firelight. Slow, cautious, as if she couldn't believe something so gentle was real. Then she lowered her gaze. Then if you allow it. Her voice shook. I want to stay. Rowan's breath caught slightly. Here? With me? Naira nodded. I don't want to run anymore, she whispered. I want a home. And when I think of a home, I think of this cabin. And you. Warmth spread in Rowan's chest. Unexpected, but welcome. He nodded slowly. Then you stay? As long as you want. Naira smiled, small at first, then growing, lighting her face in a way Rowan had never seen before. It wasn't the smile of someone terrified or broken. It was the smile of someone who finally felt safe. She moved closer to him, wrapping the blanket around both of them. Carefully, she rested her head on his shoulder. Light, trembling, uncertain, but real. The fire crackled softly. Snow fell in gentle flakes outside. The mountains stood tall and silent, guarding the little cabin that now held 2 survivors instead of 1. For the first time, the world didn't feel large and empty to Rowan. For the first time, the world didn't feel dangerous and cruel to Naira. They sat side by side, wrapped in warmth, watching the fire together. Naira whispered, I am free, and I choose to stay. Rowan turned his head just slightly toward her. And I choose to protect you. The mountain cabin, once a lonely shelter, became something else. A home built from survival. A home built from trust. A home built for both of them. And far away, in a quiet corner of the galaxy where empires fell and stars burned, the line of Veridis lived on. Not as royalty, not as a symbol, but as a girl who survived and found her place next to a human who refused to let her be alone.